Okay, it is 9 o'clock. I call to order the September 14, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. Commissioner Getzelman, can you please lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Certainly. Thank you, Chair. Those who wish to can stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Spencer, can you please take roll call?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Carrillo?
Here.
Commissioner Kofeld?
Here.
Commissioner Daniels?
Here.
Commissioner Deal?
Here.
Commissioner Getzelman?
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Here.
Commissioner Monsalve? Absent. Commissioner Roberts?
Here.
Commissioner Work?
Here.
Mr. Chair, Mendoza,
Here.
you have a quorum.
Thank you. This is a time set aside for public comment for items that are not on today's agenda or written correspondence. So we'll give that a minute. And Kelly, I think there's a letter that we received, correct, that you would like to cover?
Yeah, I don't see any public comment hands being raised.
Chair Mendoza, Eric Lundquist here, Housing Development Director. So there's, on the agenda, you're seeing this for the first time. There's two separate sections. There's the public comment section, which would be the ability for those that are in the audience to speak on anything that's not on the agenda. And then the next set of items would be the written correspondence. And this will be a section of the agenda that will be correspondence that is received that's unrelated to any other item on the agenda that staff is hoping to present to inform the Planning Commission. So having seen no public raising their hands or speaking out, if the chair would like to move along to the written comments, I would just have a couple brief statements to say on those.
Yes, since there was no hands, yes, let's do that, please.
Okay. Thank you, Chair and members of the Commission. Staff has presented these letters to the Planning Commission to inform the Planning Commission of recent discussions held with Picasso, which, if you're unfamiliar with Picasso, is they're really a real estate marketing company that deals with collecting ownerships and then dividing that ownership into different fractions on a deed through the creation of an entity, typically a limited liability corporation. So the County Council's office submitted two letters to Picasso, one more generally and then one more specifically about a property in Carmel Highlands at 201 Spindrift. We subsequently received correspondence back from them dated August 22nd, 2022, indicating and really objecting to our finding that Picasso is operating as a timeshare. We had presented, I believe it was a part of a referral at a previous commission date asking for information on Picasso. So we're presenting these letters to the Planning Commission today to inform them of these recent discussions. If there's any questions on the letters, staff is here to address them now. Thank you.
Commissioner Daniels.
Thank you. One comment and one question. I am not as familiar with Picasso, but I have not ever been under the impression, as they state in the August 22nd letter, that Picasso is a co-ownership whereby a small group of family members or friends. That's not the impression that I ever got. And I was curious if that's something that you'd be looking into. As I understand Picasso, it is the fractionalized ownership, but you don't have to know each other. You don't have to be family or friends. It's an opportunity to have access to a guest house or a vacation home for a certain period of time throughout the year. So I was just curious if that's something that staff was looking into. Because if it were in fact family members or friends, it would be more similar to co-ownership that does occur throughout Monterey County, I'm sure. But that's not the impression I've ever had from what I've seen advertised in full page ads in places like the New York Times. And then the other thing I wanted to just comment on was I was really pleased to see in the county letter, flip to page 1, the statement this is the June 24th letter. And it's on the second page, and it's the second from the last paragraph. And the county council writes in the second sentence, according to Picasso, a Picasso home is no different from any other single family residence. However, this is simply not the case. Picasso's business model of selling and then commercially managing short-term vacation use results in frequent rotating occupancy that has a dire impact on housing supply and community integrity. And that last portion of the last sentence is what I was really interested to see in this letter, that has a dire impact on housing supply and community integrity. And I'm just curious, or I'm just making a comment that when we've had the conversations about short-term rentals, which are in fact vacation uses, we're often told that this is no different from any other single family residence. And I just thought that that was interesting that we were able to just cut to the chase in this letter. And we've spent years in short-term rentals having the conversation about whether or not it is in fact any different from a single family residence. So I was really pleased to see that right out front in this letter. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Daniels.
And
Madam Clerk,
to address the commissioner's question, sorry, Chair. Our understanding in looking at Picasso's business model, and we've now met with them, in almost all instances, the co-owners don't know each other. And even when the LLC is set up, they still don't know each other, and they need to inquire to find that information out. So it isn't in any way akin to a family going in on a house together. So that's our understanding from our initial review and conversations with them.
Through the chair, that's really helpful. I was surprised to see that in their letter and had not had that understanding either. So I'm happy to see you guys looked into it. Thank you so much.
Sure.
thank you, Commissioner Daniels. Thank you, Kelly. Madam Clerk, do we have any additions, deletions, or corrections on today's agenda?
Yes, good morning. For the record, distributed via email was correspondence we received from the public for agenda item number 7, PLN 210191 Davis. And this also includes an email correspondence just distributed this morning. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair, if I might suggest we see if there's any public comment on the Picasso item as well.
That's a great idea. Let's do that. Let's open up for public comment on the Picasso letter. If anybody has any comment, please raise your hand.
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lombardo, go ahead.
Thank you. I apologize, I couldn't find the raise hand function. So since I'm now reduced to my iPad after the failure of all my other technology in this regard, I just want to say that I agree with staff wholeheartedly that like the SEMA Kalima activity in Upper Carmel Valley, this is a commercial use in a residential zone. Clearly, as County Council stated, this is not a family, although sometimes a family doesn't really know each other. These people absolutely do not know each other. And so I think it is clearly an illegal use that the county should prohibit because it does have a significant impact in residential neighborhoods when these end up being used for bachelor parties or graduation parties and are inconsistent with that use. In fact, injurious to our visitor tourist industry because they provide competition on an uneven footing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardo. Mr. Spencer, do we have any written correspondence or any emails on this item?
I don't see that we have any emails for this item.
Thank you, Ms. Magana. Mr. Spencer, can you please let the public know how they can participate on today's hearing meeting?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So only staff and committee members should have their videos on. Members of the public should have their video turned off unless they're presenting. This helps reduce distractions and helps with bandwidth during the meeting. We also ask that you keep yourself muted unless you're presenting. To mute yourself on the Zoom platform, there's a mute button at the bottom of your screen that looks like a microphone. If you're on a mobile or landline, you can press *6 to mute and unmute yourself. If you'd like to participate during public comment on any of today's agenda items, you can raise your hand by opening the reactions tab in your Zoom platform and clicking the raise hand icon. If you're on a mobile or landline, you can raise and lower your hand by pressing *9. We also have a dedicated email inbox that we are monitoring during today's meeting. The email is pchearingcomments@co.monterey.ca.us. And we will be checking that email and letting the commission know if we receive any correspondence through that media. That's all I have for now, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. This is a time set aside for commissioner comments on items that are not on today's agenda. Commissioner Deal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask staff if we could get an update on the progress towards the housing element. New housing element has to be in at some point. I know it's being worked upon. And I'd like to know how we're doing with that, and also what opportunities there are for the public to participate in that work as we try to figure out how we're going to work on providing the kind of housing that appears to be on our plate from the state. So has a lot of bearing on decisions we make here at the Planning Commission, and I'm just interested in the timing, progress, and elements of that work as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Deal. Just like that, we'll move over to, I don't see any other hands up. Would any commissioner like to pull an item from the consent agenda for discussion?
Chair Mendoza, before we move on to the consent calendar, we did have the referral spreadsheet listed. I don't know if there was any discussion needed on the referral spreadsheet. I would like to just call out to the commission so it's understanding that in October we will have a presentation from the Salinas Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency on its work on the GSP and specifically looking at the Corral de Tierra Basin. And so that will be a great presentation, and we're suggesting good attendance at that meeting to be informed, and our staff will also be in attendance there so we can all be informed as well on that discussion. And also on with that said, on the 20th of September, there's a water forum with the Board of Supervisors. So if you all are able to attend on the 20th, that will be also very informative. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rehnquist. Yeah, the reason I asked that was just that item number 1 is basically the Planning Commission referral. So I thought we were going to follow that order. That's why I went. That's the way the agenda for today's hearing is. So I might have jumped that for you. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thanks.
Commissioner Deal.
My comment was about the consent agenda when we get there on our agenda. I wasn't sure exactly where we were.
I believe we are ready for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted, I don't think it's necessary to pull it, but I would think we'd like to have at least a brief discussion on the staffing of our LUACs. We've gone to this new batch processing, and I did make the call to determine that there were letters requesting reappointment for all of the many folks who are willing to be reappointed. But I also want to discuss with the commission at some point how we encourage additional people to become involved. So it's not just reappointing the same people every time without making sure that there's new voices out there that they don't have a chance to participate. So I don't know. I don't think it's necessary. My desire is not to pull it from the consent agenda, but perhaps to agendize in a future meeting a discussion of how that could best be managed to make sure that we are leaving room at the table and being inviting of new people to come in and be part of that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Deal. Mr. Spencer, is that something you wish to address?
I wouldn't address it at this moment. We can agendize it on a future agenda. We'll add the progress towards the housing element on the referral sheet. And I believe we'll try and get back to doing an annual meeting with the land use advisory committees to review issues and do trainings that we have done in the past, but have gotten away from during COVID.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. So we had actually gone to item number 1, which is the Planning Commission referrals. Mr. Lundquist, is there anything you wish to add to that?
No, just the comments on the Salinas Valley Basin groundwater GSA. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the public have any comment on item number 1? Please raise your hand. Don't see anybody. And Ms. McGuy, I'm sure we don't have any emails or anything on that, correct?
We have no emails for this item. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll move over to item number 2. Kelly, whenever you're ready. Which is AB 361.
On these on consent calendar, Chair, you can accept a motion to adopt all of those items on consent calendar under one motion. And should there be a second, a vote can be had.
Let's do that. That's actually a great idea. Thank you. Would anybody like to adopt a motion to approve all those items as one? Which would be item 2, the AB 361, approval of the June 8th, 2022 Planning Commission minutes, approval of the June 29, 2022 Planning Commission minutes, approval of the August 24th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Commissioner Deal.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd be pleased to move approval of the consent agenda items.
Happy to second that, Commissioner Daniels.
Thank you. So we have a motion and we have a second. Can we please take a vote, Mr. Spencer?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Carrillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Kofelt,
Yes.
Commissioner Daniels,
Yes.
Commissioner Deal,
Yes.
Commissioner Getzelman,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez. Did we lose Commissioner Gonzalez? We'll come back to him. Commissioner Monsalve is absent. Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Work,
Yeah.
Commissioner Gonzalez, you're there. I believe we lost Commissioner Gonzalez and Chair Mendoza.
Yes,
Motion passes with 2 absent.
thank you. And now on item number 6, that's the reappointment to all the LUAC members. Do we have to go through the whole list, or how should we best address that, Mr. Spencer? Any suggestions?
Well, I think that the motion included the reappointments because it was on the consent calendar.
Okay.
There was discussion about it, but it wasn't pulled. So that action we just took included the appointment, so we can move on to the scheduled matters.
Great, that sounds great to me. And with that being said, we actually move on to item number 7, which is PLN 210191. Davis Kelly Trust. Staff, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Chair Mendoza and Planning Commissioners. My name is Fiona Jensen. I am the project planner for the Davis Kelly Trust application, HCD planning file number PLN 210191. On August 24th, 2022, the Monterey County Planning Commission considered the proposed project. At this hearing, staff recommended denial of the proposed project due to finding that trellises and similar accessory structures should be counted towards building site coverage. After deliberation, public testimony, and consideration of staff's recommendation, the Planning Commission directed staff to return on September 14th, 2022 with the necessary findings for approval. Therefore, staff is now returning with a revised resolution reflecting the previous hearing. As a reminder, the proposed project includes construction of a 3,646 square foot one-story single-family dwelling, an attached 476 square foot garage, and an attached 344 square foot guest house over a 398 square foot storage area. Associated site improvements include a new driveway, 62 square feet of development on slopes in excess of 30%, and removal of 10 non-native trees. The proposed project includes trellis roof overhangs that extend from the exterior of the building and an arbor connecting the proposed main residence to the proposed guest house. The property is currently developed with a 3,099 square foot single family dwelling. Demolition of this existing residence was approved under PLN 210002, resolution number 21026, but has not been demolished as of date. The proposed site coverage calculations includes the proposed residence, attached garage, attached guest house and storage structure, and eaves over 30 inches. Based on the direction provided by the Planning Commission on August 24th, 2022, the proposed 1,350 square feet of trellises and arbor are not included in the building site coverage calculation. If the proposed trellises and arbor were included in the site coverage, the project would be over the maximum allowed building coverage. Per the Planning Commission's direction, the proposed project has been found to be appropriately sited and designed. At the August 24th, 2022 hearing, the Planning Commission acknowledged past inconsistencies in the application of building site coverage calculations with respect to trellises, arbors, and similar accessory structures. Given this ambiguity and the low profile of the total proposed project, the proposed single-family dwelling and accessory structures have been designed to be subordinate to the site and its surroundings. Therefore, and in this case, the project design inclusive of the trellises and arbor are appropriate. In accordance with Monterey County Code, Section 2064-230, the project involves the granting of a coastal administrative permit to allow 62 square feet of hardscape and landscaping walls on slopes in excess of 30%. The proposed development on slopes is minimum necessary in this case. Upon completion of a site visit, staff identified 2 Monterey pines which had been removed without the benefit of a coastal development permit. In accordance with the prepared arborist report, Pacific Gas and Electric Company, PG&E, removed these trees. Staff worked with PG&E and has confirmed that these trees were removed because they were in a dead or dying condition and posed an immediate threat to the nearby utility line. In this case, a coastal development permit was not required for such removal pursuant to applicable Del Monte Forest Coastal Implementation Plan and Monterey County Code policies relating to hazardous trees posing a threat to public services, vegetation removal, and maintenance activities. The project also includes the removal of 10 non-native trees. On August 4th, 2022, the Del Monte Forest Land Use Advisory Committee voted 7-0 to support the project with the change that the County of Monterey and applicant come to an agreement or conclusion regarding site coverage and trellises. Per the Planning Commission's direction on August 24th, 2022, the proposed project's trellises and arbor do not constitute lot coverage. Staff received a public comment letter from the project architect providing an additional example of a past project where trellises were not counted in the building site coverage calculations. At the previous hearing, the project representative presented two other projects. The plan sets for these projects did not explicitly include trellises in the lot coverage calculations. Staff would like to provide two examples where trellises were included in building site coverage calculations. None of the resolutions for these projects, whether trellises were included in the calculation or not, provided a discussion on trellises and building site coverage. Therefore, staff acknowledges that there has not been a consistent practice when it comes to trellises, arbors, and accessory structures and building site coverage calculations. Two additional public comment letters were received and reference the need for a formal interpretation. The Chief of Planning has the ability to interpret the Monterey County Code at a project-specific level. As directed by the Planning Commission on August 24th, staff will be preparing a formal interpretation regarding building site coverage and trellises, arbors, and similar accessory structures. Staff would like to caution the Planning Commission that the need for such an interpretation should not be the basis of their consideration of this proposed project. At this time, staff would like to recommend the following changes to finding 1, evidence E of the draft resolution, acknowledging past inconsistencies in the application of building site coverage calculations with respect to trellises, arbors, and similar accessory structures. With that change, staff recommends the Planning Commission find the project categorically exempt from the CEQA guidelines pursuant to Section 15303, approve a coastal administrative permit and design approval to allow construction of a 3,646 square foot single family dwelling and a 476 square foot garage, approve a coastal administrative permit and design approval to allow construction of an attached 344 square foot guest house over a 398 square foot storage area, and approve a coastal administrative permit to allow less than 120 square feet of development on slopes exceeding 30%. This concludes staff's presentation. Staff is available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen. Commissioner Daniels?
Yeah, surprisingly, this has nothing to do with trellis inconsistencies, but Ms. Jensen, can you go back to slide 4?
Sure.
So my question is, you said that, is this the one? No, it was the slide right before. Oh, there it is. Okay. You said PG&E removed 2 trees. Are those like partial trees that they left in place? And is this what passes as removal, or am I seeing something wrong?
Through the chair, the standard practice for PG&E is to top trees that are posing a threat, and then often they do come back and actually fully remove. But regardless, a coastal development permit would be required just for the topping of these trees, as that constitutes removal.
Okay, that's very bizarre. Okay, I will wait to hear from the applicant, and I don't have any further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Daniels. Commissioner Deal?
Thank you. Just very briefly, I want to thank staff for their help in help us as we untangle this particular application. I think there's been a lot of thought and consideration given, and I just want to recognize and appreciate it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Deal. Do we have any other commissioner questions? I do not see any. Mr. Lombardo, we are ready for you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Anthony Lombardo on behalf of the applicant. First, I'd like to thank Fiona for her excellent presentation. I had a similar question, Commissioner Daniels. It did seem kind of strange to leave a totem pole 50 feet in the air, whatever it is. So hopefully PG&E will be encouraged to remove the trees in their entirety, because those trees, I assume, as they will be dead, could also still fall over onto a person or onto the utility wires. Maybe, as Fiona said, they just haven't gotten around to it yet, but hopefully they will. So we appreciate the staff's recommendation, and we're fine with the conditions of approval. And as from the correspondence that you've received, this issue of trellises and coverage, whether inconsistently applied or not, does appear to be of great interest to the architectural community. And I think they would welcome the opportunity to participate in the hearing, hopefully they'll be noticed, to discuss the pros and cons of counting trellises and arbors as coverage. So thank you very much. We respectfully request you approve the project today with the recommendation by staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardo. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Lombardo? Don't see any. We'll open up to public comment. Anybody wishes to have any questions on this item, please raise your hand. Don't see any. Do we have any electronic correspondence, Ms. Magaña?
We have no written correspondence. Thank you.
Okay, then we'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Deal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate the care, as I said, with which this discussion has been conducted. I think it's thoughtful and I think it is appropriate. I'd like to move staff's recommendation as amended in this hearing and additionally request that when we have the formal interpretation that has been requested by Mr. Lombardo, Mr. Davis, and Mr. Miller, that interpretation include a consideration of whether or not trellises are appropriately to be considered structural connections, as well as whether or not they are to be considered lot coverage for the purposes of that calculation. I'd also further suggest that we don't process any more applications until such time as we have this interpretation that involve these issues.
Thank you, Commissioner Deal. So that was a motion. We need a second.
I'm happy to second the motion. Commissioner Daniels?
Thank you, Commissioner Daniels. So we have a motion by Commissioner Deal and a second by Commissioner Daniels. Mr. Spencer, can you please take a vote?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Carrillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Kofelt,
Yes.
Commissioner Daniels,
Yes.
Commissioner Deal,
Yes.
Commissioner Getzelman,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez, absent, Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Work,
Yes.
and Chair Mendoza.
Yes,
Motion passes with 2 absent.
thank you.
Thank you.
And that was all we had for
Thank you.
today. Do we have anything else, Mr. Spencer? Nothing. Mr. Lundquist, anything you wish to add on today's meeting?
No, I don't know if they're in attendance here. We do have a couple new planners in our long-range planning section. I was just looking at the participants list. I think that Damian Bai is here. You'll be able to work with him soon as one of our advanced planning staff. And I believe Edgar may be on the line. So I'd like to introduce Edgar Sanchez. He is here as well. So when you get a chance, reach out to him or they'll be reaching out to you in the near future with some projects. We look forward to increasing our advanced planning team so we can get some of this advanced planning work completed. With that, I also have some unfortunate news that Craig Patent has resigned. We will miss him as one of our planners. He's moved on to sunny San Diego to be closer to his family. But we continue to maintain a good, wise group in our planning section with the support of Craig, Anna, and Melanie. They're doing a fantastic job. So I just wanted to thank them for all their hard work as well.
Thank you, Mr. Lundquist. And yes, you guys do a great job over there. Thank you. Commissioner Roberts.
I have a question about the agenda for the next meeting, which I think is our evening meeting. And I'm just curious, is that the item that we're hearing the only item on that agenda, or will there be?
We have 2 items that we plan to have on that agenda.
Okay.
Including the Susan Street Ag Employee Housing Project.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I don't see anything else. So we'll call today's meeting adjourned at 9:35. Thank you, everybody, for participating today. I appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.